With the focus on the budget. Mr. Eghes Eyieyen joins us now. He's an economist. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Morning, Chamberlain. Pleasure to be with you.
Well, as always, they talk about this. They go back and forth. At the end of the day, it boils down to just one question: implementation, because that's the big thing. But now they seem to be going back and forth about how much per barrel. 78 Senate says. House of Reps think it should be 80. The executive proposes 75. Do all of those really matter? Or should we just see, even if, no matter how much the budget, what happens at the end of the day?
The benchmarks, used in the budgets, the FX rate, the price of crude oil, they are very critical for the budget. So it does matter, what benchmark that is set by the government and are eventually approved by the National Assembly. Even though it looks like just $2 difference between what the Senate guys are saying, $78 per barrel, the House of Reps are saying $18 per barrel, and then the federal government is insisting on $75 per barrel. This is per barrel. We're talking about a production of about over 2.5 million barrels per day. Yeah. So it does matter because our excess crude account comes about because the difference between the benchmark budgeted price and the actual during the course of the year is that excess is what is taken out into the excess crude account. So the money is available for sharing at our monthly FAC meetings will be affected by whatever benchmark is set. So it doesn't matter. But you see, I think the members of the National Assembly, why they have a point, because there's the medium-term economic framework for 2013-2015 already has some benchmark, and one would have expected that, okay, maybe the government will base, the National Assembly has already reviewed that and approved, adjusted the price based upon what was submitted to them. And, for the argument is that this is now become law. But the federal government also has a point because the benchmark is not an arbitrary figure. It's based upon moving average over a period of time. Because, the price of crude oil, goes up and down in the market. And so over a period of time, you must have, there are macroeconomic ways or econometric ways to determine what should be, to have an idea of what is a proper benchmark. So one shouldn't overlook that. I believe they will resolve it. I suspect that the government would not be able to insist on $75 per barrel, and I suspect that the Senate would have its way. The way these things work, the presidency and the Senate, they become quite good friends, especially the relationship.
There's a disconnect, so to speak, between the Senate said 78,
yes,
the House said 80,
yes.
But my question is, if they're not satisfied with that document, how is it that that's the House of Representatives, how is it that they came by that benchmark of $80 when they do not agree with the document itself? We had a member of the House here who said the document itself was fraught with challenges.
Yes.
It wasn't properly done. There was no agreement between the members of the cabinet. And yet they base their benchmark on that document.
No. What they've done is, they've always insisted that they should adjust it to that $80 per barrel. The document doesn't contain, the government did not recommend $80 per barrel. They are the ones that think that $80 per barrel is what makes sense. So the $75 per barrel is what the government, the federal government, has projected and included in that medium-term economic framework. So they are saying that, well, they think that $80 per barrel. What I would like to know is how the House of Reps came about the $80 figure. Yes, the crude oil has been selling at well over $100 for quite some time now. But the vagaries of the international market for crude, it's very susceptible to all kinds of, even the threat now between Israel and Iran can throw the market into turmoil. So it's a very dicey thing, and we should it boils down to this same fixation with revenue sharing thing, because we should be talking about why we're so fixated on crude oil. There's a mindset that this reveals, the mindset that everything is still about crude oil, and I think that I really think why I understand why the legislators would want. It looks like, okay, if oil is selling at $110 per barrel, $80 doesn't look too bad. But we must respect the fact that the Budget Office, the Ministry of Finance, the government has done its job, and based upon empirical evidence, they think that this is reasonable. I personally think that I go with with the Senate, and I think that $70 per barrel is reasonable. And like I said, I suspect that would be what we carry at the end of the day.
How would?
Sorry, so some people would say that is your argument, coming from the perspective of an economist.
Yeah.
But if you were to look at it from the angle of law and constitution, and, the members of the National Assembly do have reason to raise an eyebrow in the sense that they have the power of the purse. You're not supposed to be able to spend money unless they appropriate it. But what has been happening over the years is that we make more money, and then we send a certain account or set a certain amount to the excess crude account, which is then shared across the state, oftentimes without knowledge of the National Assembly. And at such times, the federal government does what it wants to do with the funds without any accounting, as it were, from the National Assembly. And that's something they say they're trying to reduce the margin of, and that they also want, we've heard in recent times that they also want that excess crude account scrapped. That all the other funds should go to the now legal sovereign wealth fund. Do you also see the argument coming from that particular perspective?
Yeah, but we don't yet have a law before us. I mean, in terms of the fact that this is an appropriate, is a bill that has been sent to the House, and the issue of the law, the appropriation bill, even though is premised upon the projections in the medium-term economic framework, is still a distinct document and still a distinct legal document. So the fact that they have said that this is what they think is should be in the framework, it does not preclude a discussion as to what is feasible in the current budget. So it is at the point that the Senate and the resolve, the Senate and the House of Reps come together and approve the budget, and the budget becomes not just an appropriation bill, but an act, which becomes law. That is the point that one can hold the government, at that point, if they now say it should be $78 or $80, and the government continues to implement the budget based upon $75, that is when there's a problem. But the idea that maybe the government is acting illegally when putting money in the excess crude account and and then spending from it without recourse to the National Assembly. You have to understand that the government, the executive, and these are distinct arms of government. Once the budget is passed and decided into law, the only thing that the legislature should really do is to monitor and ensure implementation. So I don't agree with the notion that the federal government is spending excess crude accounts without the knowledge or approval of the legislature, because they passed once the budget. It becomes law once the thing is signed into law. And then you mentioned the issue of the sovereign wealth fund. Well, thank God that there's now a board in place, and we expect that they will really take off operations very soon. So I believe that as the sovereign wealth fund and the commission, gets to work, the issue of the excess crude account would be resolved. But but there's still a problem. I think that we still have a legal or constitutional matter to resolve, because our constitution, you pass the law for the sovereign wealth fund, yet the constitution that says that every federally generated revenue must go into the consolidated account, does not reflect, that thing. And that's why
wealth fund. Yes,
and that's why as of today, even the governors who had agreed, have had some kind of gentleman's agreement with the government, they are in the Supreme Court saying that the law is not legal. So you see the politics coming to it. So I would say that what the government still needs to do, is to ensure that the constitution is amended appropriately to accommodate the sovereign wealth fund, because as it is right now, that law, at least from my knowledge and understanding of what has happened, is not. In fact, if a state governor wants to actually put the spanner in the works, there's strong constitutional grounds to do so, and that's why they are in the Supreme Court right now. So it is not yet uhuru as far as the sovereign wealth fund is concerned. Yes, there's a law in place, but there are constitutional issues which the states are still contesting.
Okay.
But this issue that Jabale raised in earlier about the issue of implementation, you see, we have never people, I mean, I'm sure some analysts have hailed this budget, to say this budget of growth and, all kinds of adjectives people used to describe the budget. But see, like you mentioned, that the challenge will also be the issue of implementation. But the good thing this time, which is an encouragement for me, is the fact that, first of all, the budget is even being, I mean, it was sent to the Assembly this October. This is earliest start. I can't remember when in many years, even I can't remember when we had we were discussing budget so early in the year. So there's also the challenge of, this issue of rolling over budgets from year to year. And people are like, okay, if this budget takes effect from January, what about the subsisting budget of 2012, which effectively started from April? So I think that maybe in passing the present budget, the National Assembly should address, just ensure that for the sake of legal accuracy, they address those things. But I'm still worried about our budgetary process because...
Just a moment before you go on, just hold your thought there, because we spoke with a member of the House of Representatives, and we asked him concerning the threat of a lawmaker who said that for the first time there might be no 2013 budget if the 2012 budget is not implemented.
Yes.
Now, the question is, and when we raised that question with him, he said that what they are looking to do, because the 2012 budget started in April, they wanted to continue into March of the following year, and they're going to ask, most likely, that a supplementary budget be raised to finish the year, and then they can now start on a clean slate. Would you advise that, or what would you rather advocate?
I wouldn't advise that, you see, because it was an aberration for us to be carrying budgets, from year to year. The aberration of the lateness of the passage of the appropriation bill and the signing into law of the budget. So it was an aberration. We shouldn't now take it as that is our standard. So in this year that there has been efforts, and I commend the Ministry of Finance and the Budget Office and the Presidency for actually, the coordinating Minister of Finance, this was one of the things that she said she would do when she came into office. I commend them that they've actually done that, and now the onus is on the National Assembly to do its own part. What I would expect them to do is that through a resolution or through the President's Appropriation Act, they should terminate that 2012 budget at the end of this year.
What happens to the rest of the
that's something that, they can always think out with it, because right now we have a budget for 2013, and at the pace that unfortunately they have gone on recess again. I mean, I was surprised to hear that they are going for such a long recess just for Salah again. They won't be back till November 6th, I hear.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm concerned about that. So anyway, that's another issue. The point is that it is within their purview, it is within their powers and prerogative as legislators to decide that, okay, yes, this law we passed was supposed to end at this time. I mean, what does it? They said to use a popular, saying that the Igbo man that made the pencil was also the Igbo man that made the eraser. So simply, what I mean by that is that they should terminate the 2012 budget at the end of December and let this 2013 budget, which they are considering now, take effect from January. Let us restore the normal budgeting thing. This issue of carrying over budget from year to year, like I said, it was an aberration and a consequence of the inefficiencies and the dysfunction in our budgeting process. So we have a chance now to begin to do the right thing going forward.
What if the MTEF does not give or does not have detailed explanations as to how they intend to implement some of this budget, what they intend to do? Wouldn't the National Assembly have a lot of problems? Because that's one of the questions they're asking now. You
see, my understanding of what the medium-term economic framework is supposed to be is like, a broad framework, a broad, as it were, structure within which you do your budgeting. So the fixation, you've passed a medium-term economic framework for 2013 to 2015. Now, are you saying that based upon those projections, they've done this, they are not God, they've just done it based upon their own informed analysis. So what happens in 2014 or 2015 when the realities of the market and the realities of the world economy dictate that they cannot do a budget based upon that framework? So, that's why I say the National Assembly should not, even though you can argue that, they just sent us the medium-term economic framework a few weeks back. Now, why but the point is that whatever they have, it's a framework. You know, and yes, there is some, in some ways, I mean, some legal implications, but the budgeting is a plan. I mean, but the budgets are plans. And the budgeting process should not be cast in iron. It should not be cast in stone. It's a process that it should be flexible, based upon realities on the ground. So I'm saying that yes, you have the medium-term economic framework, which is supposed to give a broad guideline as to how you expect the economy to go and how you expect your finances to go in the medium term. But it is still within the prerogative of the government to say, oh, things have changed. I mean, if oil plummets from what it is now, God forbid, to under $50, are you saying that the framework will become meaningless?
Yeah, but
you know, so there must be that's why it shouldn't be something that, oh, the economic framework says this, your budget. No, that is not being realistic.
Isn't there a disconnection? Because if they go ahead with the 2013 budget, which is supposed to be looking also at how far they've gone with the 2012 budget, because they expected to have done that well, and then come up with the 2013, which you continue from 2012.
Yes.
But now, if they've only got 30% of 2012 budget, what are they going to plan on? I mean, because if it's half done, and then you're coming up with a 2013 budget based on your projections, what happens to the previous? Because they're asking, how are you budgeting? How are you planning? Because it kind of throws up your plans in smoke.
Yeah, you know, you see, and that is the government does need to be much more committed to implementing the budgets that they propose and that the National Assembly tinkers with and then passes as law. The truth is that we have not, since 1999, the federal government, the successive government we've had, budget performance has been an issue. It's been a recurring decimal. It's been the bane of our economic management. So that's why I'm saying that this new budget actually gives us a chance to start afresh. What I would say, and you may say, well, it's a law, let us, they've not implemented it. You are right. And they even threatened that they will impeach the president, before they went on vacation. Now, I mean, of course, that is not on the table anymore, as it appears. And you could see the anger of the speaker of the Aminu Tambuwa during the presentation, even though I thought it was a bit overboard and I thought that it was speaking condescendingly to the president. But the fact is that the government must determine that they should now be much more committed, because like you just said, it throws up, it's worrisome, because if you are the one that comes up with a budget and then your budget with a little amendment is passed by the National Assembly, why are you having challenges implementing the budget which you recommended and which you are committed to implement? So I agree with you that it is worrisome, because and it does make you wonder, is it that they didn't know that in terms of revenues or in terms of how the cash flow will come in, that those things, I mean, why didn't they take that into consideration? Well, like I said, the truth is that in reality there is still some, almost what I might call a rule of the thumb approach, sometimes to, how the government decides what projects to do. Every Wednesday, when the Federal Executive Council meets, and then the ministers come out to tell us what they have approved and all that. Sometimes I'm tempted to wonder, we keep being told billions of this have been approved for these projects and all that. And, so really it's a question of commitment and fiscal discipline on the part of government. Okay. Because the fact that, yes, there'll be room for emergency, but they should work the plan they put in place. And I think that's just the thing to say, that they must work the plan they put in place. And the onus is on the Federal Minister of Finance to actually, act in accordance with the words she's been saying. She said a lot of good things, but let us begin to see action in terms of implementation and performance. Okay. No more budgeting for the sake of budgeting, and then at the end of the day, we are still talking about 30%, 40% implementation.
A lot of Nigerians would actually say this issue of budgeting is talking over their heads. But 2012, 2013, let's break it down. How does all of this, the benchmark and all that, how does it affect the man in the marketplace, the investor, the average Nigerian on the road? How would it taper down to them? How would government need to do it so it can get down to this level?
Our economy is still largely driven by government expenditure. It's a mixed economy. we have private sector players, but the government remains the major spender in this economy. That is one of the characteristics of the Nigerian economy, you know, and that's why from year to year, our budget. I mean, I don't think any business. I doubt whether how many businessmen in Europe or in America will be waiting to see what the government is budgeting to decide how to go about business. But here, whether I like it or not, everything is somewhat either directly or indirectly affected by how government spends money. So, if they do it right, it will have a trickle-down effect. Because capital expenditure, for instance, I mean, capital expenditure to build roads, to repair roads, to build hospitals and health facilities and all that, who are the beneficiaries? Ultimately, Nigerians should be the beneficiaries. You know, so if it is done right, and implemented right, there is no way that the budgeting, there should be no way that the budgeting does not affect, that the budget implementation does not make life better for us as Nigerians. But see, what has happened over the years is that it has become a ritual, and this is the frustration with many Nigerians. You know, that the fact that okay, it's not implemented, and they don't really see. I mean, do you know? I always every minute look at the when they give. If you look at the breakdown from year to year, what you see is a situation where capital expenditure for the same items are repeated from year to year. You wonder, okay, as government agencies buying cars every year, you depreciate a car for 4 years. You know, most assets have depreciation period, but you get the impression that there is a mindset that, you know, even still in our public service, that if you budget, number one, you must spend the money. Okay. If I see a situation where this last quarter they be falling over themselves to ensure that they spend the money because of this mindset that budget is to be spent. Right. You know, so that has to also change. And like I said, if they implement it right, definitely the man on the street will be the better for it.
All right, thank you for coming on. Eghes Eyieyen, an economist, talking about the 2013 budget proposal.